I did not meet a super hot girl at the party yesterday, surprisingly. Anyway, thank you all for waking up, despite me being over and stuff. We're going to try to speak a bit about exploitation and also doing this. Before really starting, I would appreciate if you could give a good clap to the organizers and stuff, because I think they've done an amazing job. This edition sold out and stuff. It's just plain awesome. Getting involved. Managing to find a bar to accept 600 smelly nerds in black t-shirts. When you try to, we tried 3 bars after yesterday. We got thrown out, we were like 4 people. So yeah, having 600 people in one bar was really pretty awesome. All right. So I have a bit of a special story with Ruxcon. So I'm French myself. I came last year for the first time for Ruxcon. Basically, I wanted to meet Paul the of the Wire crew. And I ended up liking it so much that I actually settled in Australia. So yeah, I have a bit of a special relationship to the Ruxcon conference. So who am I? Yeah, I do a bit of security research. I just started my own company in Australia. Woo! So yeah, I speak from time to time to conferences and stuff. We do organize a conference in Paris. There used to be another conference in Paris. It was in a military bunker organized by Thales and military folks. We felt that somehow we needed something a bit different. So yeah, we have this small conference called Architecture. It's definitely not as big as Ruxcon, but if you guys want to submit and participate, you're most welcome. If you want to submit capture the flag challenges or whatever, it's pretty cool. We're pretty open to the community. So. And okay, I must admit I have like 90 plus slides, so I will definitely not fit into 1 hour. And if it's too easy, just let me know, and we'll cut the crap and go directly to the meat, which really depends on you guys. While I'm at it, so I'm not a great fan of web application and stuff. You have basically 2 kinds of security people. Those who try to be efficient and do web apps, and those who do it for the fun and actually don't, because reversing plain text is not that exciting. Good news is, if you really do need this, Jeremy Grossman is actually speaking at the conference, so if you need a new website with XSS and CSS or whatever, you just ask him. You're supposed to love him. Alright, so we're going to go through a few basics. Explaining what is the goal of the tool and stuff. I will go into why we need to be environment aware when writing a debugger. I will explain you a bit of the design of the tool, and then we'll go through demos and demos and demos. The idea that, so I'm going to talk about the debugger today. It's entirely open source and stuff. There is a repository in GitHub. So if you guys want to submit patches and participate, contribute, you're most welcome. Andrew G actually just did it. And finally, we will extend a bit the research to talk about stack desynchronization. If you have any questions, or if I don't speak properly, which happens, I'm French and I'm drunk, just raise your hand or scream or whatever. Alright, so the tool is already available on pmcma.org. We got like 10,000 downloads in 2 months, which is very suspect, I must say, for a Linux reverse engineering tool. I did not expect to have that many, so yeah, Andrew G, you can, it's alright, you can stop your bot by now. Alright, so Pmcma is basically a ptrace based debugger. And no, it's not like GDB. Basically, every debugger you will find these days has been built with one goal in mind, which is help fixing software. So it's assuming that you have the source to get anything relevant out of it. And the test is going to do and stuff is basically tied to the factor of fixing. I'm not that interested in fixing, to be honest. So I faced a few bugs which needed new exploitation techniques, and to achieve this, I really needed my own debugger. So I started to experiment with that stuff, and it turned out being so cool that I thought like, okay, let's share it. So currently, the tool starts when, like, if you have a fuzzy session or whatever, you do static analysis and you somehow manage to trigger your bug. I assume that the input you're giving to the tool is actually already a proof of concept which is able to crash the application. So the idea is like, based on this, can we find ways to like exploitation scenarios which are viable, and can we actually test those scenarios to come up with a working exploit? So far, the exploitation is pretty tough, honestly, to automate from A to Z. If you're familiar with all the other exploitation techniques, like symbolic execution, for instance, or tracking tainting analysis, like done by BS Demand on Frac, in the latest Frac magazine. Those are very complementary techniques in that it helps you to basically fill the gap between, okay, I can crash the application and I would like the registers to worth like whatever value. Taint analysis can definitely help you find, okay, given this input, you need to modify the input in this way and that way to have this set of registers at any time. So my tool is not capable of doing this, but those are like complementary techniques that already exist. So if we really want full automation, it's definitely possible to integrate those complementary techniques to the tool. And there again, feel free to contribute patches. Okay, instead of explaining what the tool does and stuff, it may be a bit abstract. I will give you a few demos. So, okay, let's say we want to play with SSH. Yeah, one of the goals when you write a proper tool, I mean, when you write a debugger or reverse engineering tool, you'd like it to scale. There are so many projects who are, very cool, but only work on full pilot C, or I have some examples in mind, like tools to unstrip, like reconstruct a symbol table, for instance, and even if you try it on BNLS, it's not working. Okay, honestly, it's definitely not my goal here. I want something which scales. So we're going to try real binaries like SSH. Sounds good? Or do you want Apache or whatever? Do you want a beer? Okay, SSH. So my current process ID is this one. We're going to create a new session somewhere. So I don't really need a proper SSH connection. I'm just going to create a TCP connection to force SSH to fork, and we're going to analyze the process ID of the new created fork. Alright, so I should have a new process ID. That one. Okay, it's typically privileged, so we need to be root to run the tool. Okay. Okay, please give your hand to the person next to you. We're going to prize all together. We're going to pray. It's supposed to work here. Yes, okay. So the analysis starts by, okay, it's telling me that it's finding me the process ID, stuff like this, all fine. The state of registers, so GDB will give you this. It's checking that the stack has not been smashed. You do this basically by walking back the stack, right? You find the save DBP, save the IP, and you try to go back from frame to frame. If you manage to do this like X times, it means that basically you did not smash the stack. Here we managed to do it 3 times. Okay, then the application, right, in this case the application didn't crash. Normally, when you get a bug, it will do much like being exploitable for Microsoft, trying to tell you, okay, why did you crash? So we'll give you proper examples later. Then we check a bunch of binary properties. Who's familiar, for instance, with PID? Wow, that many people? God. Position independent and executable? Never heard of that? Okay, so we'll keep the 90 slides, sorry. Stack cookies. Who knows of stack cookies? SSP propolis. Wow, cool, okay. So those are basically like security protections. Like stack cookies is like, you know, the fact of getting a random cookie on top of your stack to prevent stack smashing. Fortified source is like one of the latest merge into GCC, which allows when you have a static stack, when you have a static buffer in the stack, so automatic variable, and its length is static, and so you cannot like move the stack pointer or stuff like this, so it's static. Then the size of the copy is known in advance, and what GCC does is actually adding an extra parameter to many functions like memcopy. So instead of actually calling memcopy, it's going to call memcopy underscore chk. I'm going to show you a proper binary, which takes another argument, which is the size of the static buffer. So this totally prevents stack overflows in some cases, right? It only works for stack variables, so it does not prevent like heap corruption or data corruption or other writable section corruptions. But it's pretty efficient for stack variables if they have like constant size. Yep, any question? All good? Relocation? What's relocation? Wow, you guys are super drunk too. Okay. So partial railroad, it's like the fact of putting writable sections before executable sections. In this case, if you have an overflow, say in the BSS section, the standard technique would be to override the destructor, so detour section, which contains a function pointer. If you put the BSS section before the executable section, you cannot do that anymore. Because if you try to overwrite, you will first need to overwrite, say, .text, which is not writable, and this will just kill your exploitation technique. So most binaries on Ubuntu, Debian, whatever, Fedora, are now compiled with partial relocation, which is the fact of putting the writable section before the executable ones. Full relocation. Anybody familiar with full relocation? Good. So full relocation is basically the fact of having a static global offset table. It's a static link, it's a dynamic linker. When you run an application, has to find, say, printf in your C library. To do this, it uses the process linkage table and the global offset table. The idea is that if you do all the relocations before actually running the executable and jumping to the entry point of your binary, you can remap the whole global offset table as static, which prevents, in case you have an arbitrary write somewhere, like say you have a missing format string bug and you can write anywhere, you can write whatever you want, anywhere you want in memory. You cannot hijack an entry in the global offset table to, for instance, redirect printf to your shellcode. So that's also full relocation is also a prevention of entire classes of exploitation scenarios. Executable stack. I hope people are at least familiar with this. It's so it's like the fact of having either software-based or hardware-based non-executable sections. Back in the days, everything used to be executable, which means anything mapped inside the binary was executable. So like, your variables and so being it in read-only data, normal data, not just BSS section, or even the heap used to be executable. From an exploitation perspective, this is pretty good, but from a security perspective, not so much. So we introduced either software-based solutions like PAX, or hardware-based like the NX bits in Intel or EMD equivalents. Actually, it's EMD and without copying that stuff. Why is it interesting to check if your binary is actually written in C++? Why do you care? Because C++ relies massively on C, yes, on function pointers. So yeah, if your binary is compiled with, is a C++ executable, everything which is like a method will actually be a function pointer, most probably in the heap. So if we can overwrite arbitrary heap sections, it's pretty interesting to know that your binary will be filled with function pointers. Okay, so those are the main checks done by those are really prerequisites, right? If you want to write any exploit, if you don't know those properties, it's basically just not possible. So then Pmcma checks a few things like, is the binary actually privileged, like whether it's real user ID, group ID, effective group ID, and the previous ones, saved ones. Then it checks a bunch of things regarding ASLR. I'll get back to this. You guys are familiar with the randomization, right? Yeah, cool. Okay, and then if you ever used something like PAX test, which is a sort of regression test tube in PAX and GRSecurity, it tells Pmcma has to also know, like, is your heap executable? Is your data executable? It's pretty tough to say because it depends on both the software you're using, like what is the exact version of your kernel, what is the configuration of your BIOS. Even if you have physical capabilities of NX at CPU level, if it's disabled in the BIOS, it's not going to be active and your heap is going to be executable anyway. So it's worth a try. And the last check we do is actually trying to execute all the sections after mprotect. Usually, if you have a writable section and you try to change its permissions using mprotect, for instance, to change the section from writable to executable, which would be pretty handy if you want to execute your own shell code, usually it works. Thing is, with some version of GRSecurity in pretty hardcore mode, you can disable this. In the sense, you can be sure that any writable section will never be executable again. So we need to check this. Yeah, stop smiling. I know I'm creaming over. It's all right. Any questions so far? Okay, that was slide 2. So good news. All right. I had a few goals in mind when writing the tool. Okay, honestly, I had a few bugs I could not exploit manually, so I thought, like, okay, I need a tool. There is one thing I did not want it to do, which was Stack Overflows. But when I released the tool, every second guy was sending me an email like, hey, I tried the tool with and it doesn't work. Alright, so I actually worked a bit on Stack Overflows, and I'm going to show you what happened with Stack Overflows. Most of the research I looked at is actually stuff done by Ben Oakes back in 2006. I thought it was Andrew G who disclosed it last year for writable stack cookies in particular. And the guys at KiwiCon in particular, the guys who were with Sonia told me, well, I'm hallucinating. We knew that for ages. And yeah, Ben Oakes actually showed this stuff exactly 5 years ago at Ruxcon. So. Okay, so I'm going to give you a small demo of Stack Overflows. So most of the attack relies on the fact that when you have a server in the Linux, it's most probably going to fork. We don't use multi-threading that much, unless you really need zillions of connections at a time. If you need more than 10,000 connections at a time, then it's not a good idea to fork, because each fork will need its own PID, process ID, and it's pretty tough to allocate that many process IDs. So for instance, like HTTPD or Nginx, web servers who actually aim at breaking this 10,000 connection limit do not use forking. That being said, so the idea is like if you use fork, the mapping of your binary is going to be exactly the mapping of the original binary, right? Because fork is not changing memory alignment or whatever. It's just creating a proper replica of the original process. This is pretty bad because if you have a stack cookie or for those who know randomization, it means that the randomization in both processes are going to be exactly the same. If we look at the existing protections, so we have NX, we can pretty much assume that NX is going to be there, right? Non-execution of writable sections. Stack cookies, it's default since GCC 4.2, so you can assume it's going to be there anyway. Randomization is pretty much always there, unless you have a very, very old kernel. Position independent executable is something somewhat new. It's like the fact of compiling your main binary, pretty much like a shared library, in the sense it can be loaded at any position in the mapping of your process. Which, if you don't have this, like your shared libraries are going to be randomized, but the main binary is going to be static. So if you have any kind of corruption, you can use like read to PLT, which means instead of, who's familiar with read to libc? Bullshit series. Wow, read to libc, return to library. Okay, well, for those who know, you can, if you don't have position independent executable, you can actually return to the PLT instead of returning to the libc, which is randomized. So the idea is that if you have, say, an entry to mprotect and any copy primitive like printf, sprintf, or string copy, whatever is a PLT, you can pretty much manage to copy your shellcode to any writable zone, and then call mprotect from the PLT to remap this section as executable instead of writable, and then return to it. If you have position independent executable, you cannot return to the PLT anymore because it's randomized. Static GOT, we don't care so much unless you plan to use return-oriented programming. A good trick with ROP is actually to read a value from the GOT. Say your binary is actually not, it does not have mprotect, means if your binary is not calling mprotect at all, you will not have a PLT entry for mprotect. Well, I'd still very much like to call mprotect. So the idea is that I could, using ROP gadgets, try to read any entry in the global offset table, add it, so it's gonna point to an address in the libc, say the address of printf. The distance from printf to mprotect is actually constant because it's compiled libc. So if I manage to find ROP gadgets to read an arbitrary GOT position, adding the constant value, which is the offset from printf to mprotect, and patch it back to printf, in the global offset table. Next time I'm going to call printf, I'm actually going to call mprotect. So the idea that using this trick, you can call using read to PLT functions which are not called normally by the binary. If you have a static global offset table, it's not possible anymore. That being said, there is also a trick, which is find a gadget that does, for instance, call EAX, and you don't need to patch back to the global offset table anymore. What's ASCII armoring? Serious? Everybody knows. That's all good then. That's good. It's the fact of having your shared libraries and your main binary, if it's compiled, position is independent executable. At a memory location, we start with 0, 0. The idea being, if you have a stack overflow using, say, string copy, it's going to end at the first occurrence of 0, 0. So if you need to copy any address in your stack, for instance, because you want to do a read to libc, if it contains 0, for entire classes of functions, who are basically ASCII's capable, you will not be able to write a proper exploit at all. Actually, if you combine this with stack cookies, the stack cookie always contains 0 under Linux and the BSD2. So if you cannot copy zeros, basically you fucked. It's not exploitable at all. If you have other function monads 0 sensitive, like memcopy, then you don't care. It's just bypasses the whole thing. So I'm saying it's cheesy. I'm really going to show you the exploit, but like it's cheesy because you can do this only by static analysis. You don't need to actually run the binary to write a proper exploit. And you can actually also write an exploit which is going to be generic enough to work with any kind of compilation. Like, is it compiled with PIE, without PIE? Is it another program like an FTP server, whatever? It doesn't matter. There is a proper generic exploit, which I have somewhere here. So I'm going to run the, first I'm going to show you the compilation properties. Right, so the binary is actually compiled with position independent executable, it has an X enable, it has stack cookies, and it has full relocation, which means standard dot. So that's pretty much as hardcore as it gets. The only additional protection you could get is Fortify source. Problem is Fortify, like we said previously, in many cases do not apply. In the sense, if you're not copying to destination in the stack with a predictable size, then mprotect will just not apply. We're very late, so let's move on. Okay, here is a server. So it's just a dummy server, right? Like, it's waiting for a connection. It says it's prompting for a password. Sorry, login and a password, right? Yeah, I have a fantasy with banks at the moment for some reason. Alright. So I'm gonna keep this stuff running in one window. And we're just gonna run the exploit. Here we go. No, here we go. Oh yeah, okay. I moved it in the morning for some reason. That was really stupid, but anyway. So. So we can brute force the canary. The idea is to brute force it byte per byte. That was the MATI ID from endpoints. What's actually not known is that you can actually also brute force the saved EIP in your stack, which means if you get a bug in the libc, you will get the address of the libc right away, so you don't need to brute force anything. Or if the crash happens in the main binary, you will get the mapping of the main binary, even if you have position independent executable enabled, which means if you want to do read to PLT or find gadgets in the main binary, you always win. So then we need a few exploit parameters, whatever, okay. In this case, I'm using the standard read to libc technique, which is basically copying every byte of your shellcode to a writable section. So you use either the BSS of the main binary or the BSS of the libc, if you can find the address of the libc. And so the only problem with this stuff is that the exploit is pretty big. In the sense your payload is your 130 something bytes, and it's actually going to get bigger. Let's praise the demo god. Give your hand to your neighbor, seriously. We should somehow get a shell. Maybe, yeah, install. Okay, so I should have now a proper, if I do let's start. No, you're not praising the demo gods good enough. Come on. Okay, I'll get back to this later. The idea that, so this exploit is normally pretty reliable, as you can see. The only problem is that if you need to send, say, 2,000 bytes in the stack to copy every bit of your exploit and byte to byte your exploit, which means you basically have one stack frame for one copy byte. This is totally not realistic in the sense most overflows you will get are like by a few bytes and not by 2,000 bytes. So what's the countermeasure to this? Well, a good idea, for instance, is instead to returning to memcopy or string copy or whatever to copy byte to byte, is just to return to receive. If you return to receive and you give it as parameters like first parameter, the address of the BSS, second parameter, no, first the address of the socket which is already open, second the address of the BSS, and third the size of your shellcode. Basically what the program will do is wait for you to send the shellcode in via another send, and you can copy the entire shellcode at once using only one stack frame, which reduces the size of the exploit of the payload from 2,000 whatever bytes to just, I managed to do it in 45 bytes, which is like a lot less. Okay, we'll get back to this demo eventually. So like I said, like Stack Overflow was really not my main focus in the sense I think it's pretty well documented, and you can do this using static analysis only. If you check like the addresses of the function calls in your PLT, they give you rock gadgets in your main binary, and you find the addresses of every function in your libc. You pretty much set to write to exploit, so you don't need the dynamic analysis at all. Do we go through the basics? Who knows assembly? Any kind of assembly. Yeah. Guys, you know what? We're pretty late. I'm gonna. Alright, so I assume you guys know why application crash. Memory, basically you have read, write, and execute permission, and if you try to dereference memory in a wrong way, you'll get a segmentation fault. It's all you need to know. In this, well, it's written. So, for those not familiar with assembly in a nutshell, in 2 seconds. Assuming Intel syntax, you always have the instruction you're executing. So in this case, it's compare. Then you have the destination operand. In this case, it's EBX plus 8. And you have the source operand. In this case, it's 9. It means that if you had a mob, for instance, a move instruction, this would be the source, like where you're copying from in memory or what register. And this would be where you're writing. And when you have brackets like that, it means like it's much like in C, dereferencing a pointer. It means you're not copying memory to a register, you're actually writing to memory. So if you had a mob over there, that would be a write instruction, because this is the destination, and this is where the brackets are. Okay? If you have the brackets on the side, you can read. Here it's a comparison instruction, so it's not writing anything anywhere. It's just actually subtracting 9 from the memory location written at EBX plus 8, and compares only 1 byte. Easy, cheesy. Alright, now that everybody's familiar with assembly, we get to the real thing. Alright, so let's say, you know, who's been trying to fuzz, for instance? You know, random fuzzing in the windows or whatever. One guy. This is a fashion show or something? Most of the bugs you get these days are not stack overflows. This is why I'm not interested that much in stack overflows in the first place. Most of the bugs you get are actually not exploitable. It's like, you know, you're reading from the first page being never mapped under Linux, thank you. So, like, if you can read from, you know, just a memory location you do not control, and this location is never going to be mapped, whatever you do, basically this is not exploitable. So slightly more interesting bugs are bugs where you can write anywhere in memory, and where hopefully you have some control of those registers. This happens a lot, as opposed to Stack Overflow these days. We find heaps of them. If you do some fuzzing, you will find like shitload of reads and maybe a few writes, which may be exploitable. And this is where we lay actually proper methodology. It's like, okay, so I have a set of register. My application is dying on MOV EAX with brackets, which means I'm writing to it, and it's writing the content of EBX. If I control both EAX and EBX entirely, I can write 4 bytes anywhere I want in memory, assuming 32-bit architecture. Yes? Yes. If I do that, where do I want to write? I'm open to suggestions.
The next instruction.
You would like to write the next instruction. So like the dot text of your binary. It's a pretty good idea because it's executable, but it's a terrible idea because it's not writable. No, it's not read-only, but it's executable and not writable. So you cannot do this. Maybe you could back in the days, and maybe you can on other CPUs, like microcontrollers, I think you can. But definitely not on Intel. Now, the standard technique, come on, like if you have a missing format string, for instance, like you'd like to attack the detour section, which contains an obvious function pointer, or you'd like to hook a global offset table entry, like patch printf, and you say, hey, it's normal printf, it's my shellcode, right? Thing is, if the God is static, you cannot do this anymore, and you can actually remove the detour section entirely using custom linker script. It's not standard yet, but it's due to arrive. So we need better exploitation techniques. If I can write anywhere in memory, where I really want to write is find a function pointer. Because if I find a function pointer, I overwrite my function pointer with my arbitrary content. I make it point to my shellcode, right? Assuming that my shellcode is somehow executable and writable, which is not realistic, but I'll get back to this later. If I hook a function, what's a function pointer? What's a function? The function pointer is basically like a 4-byte value, which is in the writable section, right? And which is pointing to executable code. Sure? So having those definitions in mind, it's probably not the one your teacher gave you, but it's a pretty good and correct one. What we'd like to do is find all the function pointers in memory. What's the problem with this? There are a couple of scripts in Python and stuff, really fancy, we try to do this. You know, following me? What? There are too many, yeah, it's one problem.
Well, they're not all concentrated in one space either.
Hey, mate. Yeah. We did 10 slides, I think. Woo!
You have French on me.
The problem with finding function pointers is basically if you do static analysis only, you will find a shitload of them, correct? But actually in this list, you don't know which one are actually going to be called. Given one input, you will not call every function pointer possible inside the application, right? So this is a pretty tough problem. I don't know. My battery is not working for some reason. Can you check that out? Thanks. Alright, so what I'd really like to do actually, for the slides to me, what I really like to do is list all those function pointers, and to do that I need somehow a proper debugger. And this is where GDB is not helping you. The concept of Pmcma is basically a normal debugger works like this. You have your debugger, which is debugging another application. So you type a few comments, blah blah blah, your application dies, and it's over. You need to restart, and the mapping of the debug process is going to be different. Like all the SLR property, alignment, etc. are going to be different. So I don't want to do that. What I'd really like to do is have my debugger, who's debugging my process, and I want to have as many tries as I want. Like I want to write to memory, and if I make a mistake, I want to try again. So one option to do this is actually using, for instance, VMware, which has, you can take snapshots, and you use GDB plus VMware, and you can get back to the previous situation. There are a couple of problems with this. First off, you need to know what is the previous situation, which means you need to be able to take a snapshot before crashing, which is not always possible. Yeah. And the other problem is that it's slow as shit. I mean, seriously, you don't want to do that. So the good idea is what? You have a debugger, you're debugging a process. This process, we're going to force it to fork. So we inject a shell code inside this process, it goes fork, and we patch back. A few bytes we have patched. This creates a proper replica of the previous process. An exact replica, meaning byte per byte, you know, like writable section are exactly the same states, variable exactly the same states, stack cookies will be the same. It's a proper replica. So if I can make one fork, I can actually make 1 million forks if I want. So I make as many forks as I want. And in each of these processes, if I have an arbitrary write, the only locations I can actually try to write an exploit, are not the .text section, like suggested earlier, because it's an executable section. I can only write to writable sections. Yeah, high five. So, no, all good?
Relax, buddy, doing good.
So the idea is that if I can write only to writable memory, I'm going to create as many forks as possible memory location to overwrite, and I'm going to overwrite every possible location in each of the process. I'm going to overwrite only 4 bytes at a different location each time, and I overwrite it with something remarkable. So a good value would be, for instance, F1, F2, F3, F4, because 1, it's easy to find out, right? It's canary. And it's always pointing to what? Ring 3? It's always pointing to kernel end, whatever your kernel split is. So basically, if you try to execute memory location F1, F2, F3, F4, it will never work from user end, right? So let's sum it up. I have my debugger, I'm debugging a process, I make it fork 1 zillion times, I have exact copies of it. In the first one, I overwrite the first 4 bytes in writable memory with F1, F2, F3, F4. In the second one, I leave the first 4 bytes alone, but the next 4 bytes I overwrite with F1, F2, F3, F4, etc. Right? Up to the latest possible, and I keep on executing this stuff. If I overwrite a function pointer, what's going to happen? It will crash, yeah, executing which instruction?
When it tries to go from user to kernel.
It's going to try to execute memory location F1, F2, F3, F4, which is pretty remarkable, right? So my debugger will be able to find the function pointer. If I have a function pointer and I overwrite it with F1, F2, F3, F4, I mean, there is implication and there is also like the reciprocity. So it's a sound methodology. You're going to find all the function pointers that doing this. Okay, fuck the slides. We're going to go through a few demos, which will possibly work. Please give your hand to your neighbor. Right. You guys can see both terminals? Yeah. Okay. Let's do it with SSH. It would be great. Alright, so I'm going to create a new connection. This is liquid. Okay. So we will assume that SSH, let's say that right now I can crash SSH because I have a small bug in it. I can, so not a Stack Overflow or something very obvious, but I can, you know, like either create an invalid memory read or invalid memory write. So what I'd like to know is, can I find all the function pointers? Power failure, awesome, best time ever. Alright. Okay, so I'm a bit sorry about this. You did not give your hand to your neighbor, that's why. Alright, so the idea that Pmcma is normally capable of listing all this stuff, I entitle you to try and know the tool by yourself. Another problem which we commonly find is actually when we have a lot less control over the application. Here I've been assuming that, okay, I have someone like mov into EAX, register EDX, which means if I control EDX and EAX, I can write anywhere a 4-byte whatever in memory, right? Many times you don't have that much control, which means, for instance, you don't control what value is going to be written in memory. In this case, what would you like to do? Apart from removing it.
It's hard.
It's going to take forever. Forget it. The idea is that if I cannot overwrite a function pointer with the exact address of my shellcode, basically I don't want to overwrite a function pointer at all. So there are other methodologies we could think of, like pointer truncation. If I can only write 0, that's the reason why I wrote Pmcma in the first place. I had a really cool bug, but I could only write 0 on 4 bytes aligned boundaries, which means you can write 32 entity, which is only 0. So if you find a function pointer and you overwrite it with 0, you're going to try to execute the first page of memory, which we said is never map, unless you have a very old kernel before 2.6.23, or you're running as root and you're a Thunderhead and you're mapping 0, which is fucking stupid. So basically, if I cannot override this function pointer, maybe I could try to truncate it. If actually I can write only on 32 bits aligned boundaries, I won't find function pointer line, because your compiler, even if you're using a not too good compiler like GCC, is going to make sure that your function pointers are aligned for performance reasons. Yes? Yes. So in this case, what we'd like to do is still truncate the variable. Yeah,
I mean, take as long as you want.
Oh, good. Okay, cool.
You're awesome, bro. I love you, man.
I'm awesome, man. Good demos today. Good demos. And this is going to be like 2 minutes. So the idea is that if I cannot overwrite a function pointer, what I could try to do is overwrite another variable, but it has to be misaligned. If I can only write to align memory. How do you find misaligned memory? Like, you know, read or write to memory which is not aligned. Is this common? Is this common? No idea? It's not really common because it's costly for the CPU. So most variables are actually aligned. If you'd like to do it, there's actually a neat trick, and we'll get a demo for it, is to set the align flag in the E flag register, which is a special control register, if you will, for those who know nothing about assembly. If you set the align register and you execute an instruction retrieves or writes from unaligned memory, you're going to get a signal 7, which is SIGBUS. Thank you. If you get so, by doing this repeatedly, it's possible to actually find all the memory reads or memory writes to unaligned memory. So if I can only write a constant value to a given location, what I try to do is find an unaligned read, for instance, overrides the value which is going to be read, but truncate it. It's aligned. My write is always aligned, so I'm actually going to truncate it, right? And pray so that the next few instructions actually use this overwritten value to do something interesting, like to copy to a buffer, something like this. This is also fully automated with Pmcma, and since we won't have time for a demo, I entitle you to try this at home. So one more thing, which I skipped for those who actually followed a bit. Who did follow a bit? Yeah, 2 guys? Woo! I skipped some read part. I said, okay, if I override a function pointer, I can make it point to my own shellcode. And you should say, bullshit, because your shellcode is not going to be executable. It's going to be in a writable section, right? So actually what you'd like to do is not to return to your shellcode directly, but return, for instance, to another function prologue. Let's say your current stack frame, as you're calling mcopy, is 40 bytes long. If you return to a function prologue, which is not actually of 40 bytes, anybody knows what's a function prologue yet?
Did you not inject your shellcode when you forked your process?
Yes, I did for in my debugger. Like in real life, if I want to attack SSH, I cannot attach via debugger, right? So they're like, yeah, the shellcode I use for my debugger, I did inject it via ptrace.
So why can't you execute it?
Yeah, in my debugger I can, but not in real life. So like, the debugger is basically for prototyping, and once you're actually attacking the real, I mean, if you have ptrace, if you can actually ptrace into SSH on a remote server, you don't need an exploit man. So the thing is, that was a good question, thank you. If I can send my my shellcode over a socket, it's going to be copied most probably in the heap, maybe in the stack, correct? So it's in a writable section, which is not executable. So if I manage to somehow trigger a bug, which is an invalid memory write, and I find a function pointer to overwrite, I can overwrite my function pointer, but not to point to my shellcode, because my shellcode is in a writable section and it's not executable. So if I do that, I just get a segmentation fault and no proper execution of my shellcode. Unless you have a very old kernel and blah, blah, blah. Okay? So in this case, what you can do is try to desynchronize the stack. Instead of returning to a function prologue of the same size, you return to a function prologue of a different size. If you do this, the save VIP, save DBP, etc. are going to be completely wrong. Sure? And if you can make it point to your own fake stack frame, for instance on the E or on the stack itself, then you're set. Right? So the idea is like, instead of trying to execute shellcode directly, what we're going to try to do is return to create a fake stack frame. And we're back to the problem of stack overflows, in the sense creating fake stack frames. We can do this entirely static with static analysis, so it's easy. Like finding function pointers is something we can do like in very little amount of time, like basically in one pass of disassembly. Good? Cool? Do we have time for demos or no? Can you tell me?
Wiley?
Oh, mate, look. For you,
For you? For me, you do it?
you got 5 minutes, sir.
Ah, you're right.
Oh, while you're setting it up, does anyone have like a really quick question for Jonathan?
Yeah, like writing shell code with ptrace.
Yeah. You know, apparently once you have root, you can get root really easily.
Good one.
No way.
I'm going to use another version of Pmcma. I'm not using the correct one. We ported this stuff to 64-bit, by the way. And it's supposed to import it to BSD and OS X pretty soon when I have time.
This is pretty cool that you can play with that home.
Yeah, so it's Apache 2 license, so it's entirely free software. It's available on pmcma.org and it's available on the GitHub if you want to submit patches and stuff. Just copy the Git, merge your stuff, and I just need to accept your version. Alright, so we have some problem with SSH. We'll still try with SSH. Because it's cool. Wow. Wow.
You need a pay flag.
No man, ATM and is like not resolved. I think the demo gods are pretty angry at us because we got 2 more tests today. Right. I'm gonna use a dummy application. We're gonna use you know what? I'm gonna debug my slide. I'm gonna debug Pmcma. Right. So here is the beautiful thing.
Could all you newcomers please shut up?
And please give your hand to your neighbor. It's very important. So Pmcma, I write the P here. Okay, we just do the basic analysis. It's going to find me hopefully the function pointers. So it starts by the same analysis as previously. Thank God we had time to do this. I did not explain you ASLR or to find like the most probable address. Basically, you execute the same binary 100 times. You record the mapping and you check if they change. If one of the mapping is like more likely to happen, you want to take a function pointer in that mapping because your exploit is going to be more reliable. Hopefully, if it's like 100% replicable, well, you get a proper reliable exploit. So here we're analyzing all the writable sections. It's in a one-pass thing. What we do is trying to check if any 32-bit value is actually pointing to executable memory. If it does, it's potentially a function pointer. So we save it for later. And when we enter in the second phase of the debugger, we're going to override successfully in a different fork that we have injected via ptrace because I can, because I'm ptrace, because I'm God. And we're going to try to override successfully all the possible function pointers with this canary value of f1, f2, f3, f4 and check out if they are actually dereferenced. So there are a few additional things like we can check if the crash is happening in the loop or not, which is pretty important. Like is it an atomic write or is it actually an overflow? Which one's better, atomic write or an overflow? Who says an overflow is better? Who thinks an atomic write is better? You're not helping. No, usually an overflow is better because you can override the whole section and you don't really need to spot your function pointer to correctly. And second thing, if you have an overflow, you actually don't give a fuck about randomization most of the time. In the sense, you don't need to find it in memory at all. You just override it past your buffer, which is static location.
Very hard to overflow these days with the new computing power.
It's hard to find overflow because of computing power.
Very hard to overflow it because you have big memory, big everything.
It's just more space. space to overflow, mate.
Yeah, so
It'll take you longer to load.
okay, this is, alright, so since we're using mostly 64 architecture, mostly for servers, yeah, the admin space is bigger, but the SSH you're executing, for instance, is still pretty much the same size, right? So the actual memory which is mapped in memory is the same, like a few megabytes to a few hundred megabytes if you do instant heap spray. So the idea is that, yeah, it's kind of tough to find a location, but if you have an overflow, say you have a BSS overflow, for instance, because you're writing to global uninitialized memory. If you have a BSS overflow, the size of the BSS is going to be the same. And if you find something which is static, because for instance, so either you also find a stack overflow and you can use the previous technique I showed you to brute force not only the stack key but also the save the IP. So you find the location of save the IP and you can get back to anything inside the main binary. Or if the binary is, for instance, static without PIE, it's going to be mapped at a given location. Even if you have a very big array space, it's going to be mapped always at the same location. Anyway, so we found thousands of possible pointers, and we're trying to dereference them and actually relieve piece off. That's it. All right. So normally here it's going to list you like all the function pointers is going to find. Here is pretty lengthy because we found thousands of them, and yeah, my team will totally suck. Thank you for coming.